of your remarks into the record in 60-second interventions after that. But let me start with Minister Sara Agassiz-Munoz, the third Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for the Ecological Transition and the Demographic Challenge in Spain.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. And I would like to start at the end. That means I will try to answer the question that we have in front of us, what to watch and what to act over the next 12 months. So what to watch? I think we need to watch climate emergency, geopolitical volatility, and the race for competitiveness, of course. These three elements, and always we have to watch science. We have to listen to science. Where to act? I think we need to act accelerating this ecological transition and with specific goals for industry, technological part, and also social projects. They need to be there as well. And who should be doing this and how we can make it happen? I think that the answer is we need to accelerate, and accelerate. We are facing the biggest challenge in front of us. Once again, this is the fourth time I take the floor in a session. The biggest one is climate change. This is the biggest challenge. So we need to look for the answers for that challenge. At the same time, we are living in a time where energy is not longer just a commodity. It's a strategic asset, and also sometimes it's used like as a weapon. So for the next 12 months, for us, we think climate and energy policy is not another cycle. It's something really special, and we need to think about how we can innovate in a way that innovation is not an option. It's a basic condition for this transition that we need to speed up. Innovation means accelerating. Innovation means improving social acceptance, means increasing resilience infrastructure, which is part of the topics that will be discussed today. And in the case of Spain, we have seen the last report provided by the International Energy Agency, and we are leaders in research and development in public expenditure around energy sector. And we are leaders because we need it. We need this public side of the story to make the other private sector come and jump in. So we have good experience in wind energy, in energy storage, in batteries, in critical raw materials, in value chain, and also renewable hydrogen projects. But also, it's very important to think about less developed regions. So we also have investments in promotion of business and partnerships to attract investments in those regions and countries, which I want to stress is really, really, really important. So 5 priorities I'd like to stress, and I will be very brief. The first one, grids, of course. Grids are a crucial element of this transition of electricity. Demand is rising, electrification is accelerating, and of course, the good news is this is happening with renewables scaling up. So we need grids resilient, digital, flexible, and more efficient. Many technologies are already there, so the challenge now is how to scale and speed up. The second, storage and flexibility. So if we want and we are increasing renewables, of course, we need to make it more competitive, and we need to make it as a solution for 24 hours. That means we need more storage. That means that we need more flexibility. So we are working in Spain, and I know in Europe and in many other countries, in how to link consumers and producers through demand response, through digital management, and sector coupling, which I think are good instruments that we need to further develop. The third one, sustainable fuels in an industrial decarbonization. So we know that we have hard-to-abate sectors, those ones like aviation, shipping, and heavy industry, and we need to move from first of a kind to first of many. That means that we need to put in action many measures like de-risking projects, especially the early ones, these first movers, and create credible demand signals. That's why I think once you put a plan in, once you put measures on the table, you need to stick to those ones, never go back. So you need to accelerate and have these clear signals also for private sector, increasing the public and private partnership. And the fourth element is critical raw materials, of course, and circularity. Because circularity is something that we need to think about. We are increasing the level and number of materials needed in this digital and ecological transition. So we need to use also those technologies to make circular use of those materials, diversification, recycling, and also as a part of this energy innovation. And last but not least, I always would like to mention the importance of social innovation, because this is innovation as well. Society needs to be part of the solution, needs to be part of the convince people, citizens that want to support this big change in our energy system. So innovation is about people, it's about territory. That's why in Spain we are also looking at just and inclusive transition and one of the pillars and the elements. And last, one idea that I would like to share in these times that are complex, times of uncertainty, the most strategic decision is to accelerate together. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Next we'll have Ed Miliband, the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero from the UK.
Thank you so much, Akshat, and I'm a big fan of yours and your Bloomberg Zero podcast, if I'm allowed to say that. There are other podcasts available. Look, I also want to thank everybody who's come to this session. I'm a sort of, I'm a nerd, so I would love to have been, with the greatest respect to all my ministerial colleagues, I'd have loved to have been at this session all day. Because you've obviously got a fantastic range of people here from academia, business, government, NGOs, and elsewhere. Let me offer, since Sarah has set the trend, 5 observations also, and then I want to end on a note of optimism. Look, first of all, we should celebrate the innovation that has already happened. And I think this is very, very important. If you compare the IEA's forecast of solar deployment in 2010 for today, their prediction for today, we're at almost 12 times more solar deployment today than they predicted in 2010. 12 times more, 12x. Now, that's not a criticism of IEA forecasting. That is a sign of the innovation and the shared work we've done together. Public sector, private sector, academia, and so on. And you know, we all know, and I'm sure you've talked about the fall in the cost of solar and batteries and wind over the last decades, and I think it's very, very important to say that. Secondly, one lesson of innovation from the UK, or at least an approach to innovation, we've set this very challenging goal of clean power by 2030, a clean power system. I think most people in the UK in the energy industry would agree, some people don't agree with the goal, but would agree that it has definitely had a galvanizing effect. So I think governments, and indeed maybe even, dare I say it, the private sector, can underestimate what is possible. And we see that if you set challenging goals and you're serious about them, and you're serious about them across government, you can drive real change. Someone was talking about permitting planning as I came in. We've changed some of our planning rules to speed up the deployment of offshore wind because we've got this very, very exacting goal. So second point on what are the circumstances that can drive innovation, and just what's one lesson from the UK. Thirdly, notwithstanding what I said about the role of renewables on the system, I think this is a really important point, and it came out of the Age of Electricity session this morning. We are not simply about replacing the old technology from the old system with the new technology in the old system. In other words, we're not just about saying, well, we used to have coal-fired power stations, gas-fired power stations, now we're going to have solar renewables, and it's the same system. And I think there is a sort of danger for us in this, which is it's really important to build out the grid, absolutely fundamental, because we know that has got to transport the clean power to people. But, and I very much echo what Sarah said in her very good remarks, you know, consumer-led flexibility, battery storage, decentralized energy, all of these are part of this new system. And I think there is a danger that we under-index on what is possible in this respect. And if I make an observation about some of the debates that we have, it's that we're probably at this stage, not necessarily to the same scale as the IEA in 2010, understating the importance of consumer-led flex, for example, and its role it can play in the energy system. Fourth point about innovation, which is a sort of plea on behalf of government ministers. I'm sure Sarah has this experience too. We are not short of people coming to us saying, if only you'll listen to me, all of your problems will be solved. If you just adopt my technology, everything's going to be great. Look, but that's a sort of slightly flippant point. But I think look, we know that what is our task? It is to try and do for other technologies what has been done for onshore wind, offshore wind, solar, batteries, and so on, to drive down the costs. And the kind of the mother or father of cost reduction is deployment, but it's working out what you deploy, how we work together on that. We have a science and technology committee that we've set up to help give us some advice on which of the technologies that we're underestimating the potential of. But I think that is the key innovation task that we have. Fifth point, just briefly, that I'll make is on supply chains. I think we've learned from the last few years the importance of strong and resilient supply chains, particularly in a world of global instability. And again, in our Global Clean Power Alliance, we're doing a lot of work on this question. It's something that Europe is taking, European Union is taking very, very seriously. But it seems to me that it's not necessarily seen as a kind of innovation question, but I think it is a deeply important question for us as we make sure that we have strong and reliable supply chains so that we can actually build the system that we want to build. Last point, I just want to end on this, which is there's too much gloom around. There's too much gloom around. Look, the climate challenge is a really daunting challenge. But when I left the Copenhagen Climate Summit, which didn't go so well, at the end of 2009, we were heading for a 4-degree world. Now we're heading for a 2.5-degree world. That's very bad. But we've been able to make progress because of multilateralism, because the private sector has played an incredibly important role, because governments have stepped up, and I don't believe this transition is about to be stopped in its tracks. You've got to distinguish, as somebody much wiser than me said, between the cycle and the trend. And we know where the trend is going. Now, the trend is not going fast enough, and the job of all of us is to speed it up, but gloom and despair never got anyone anywhere. And, you know, we've got Andre, Mr. President, in the room. You know, COP30 was incredibly hard, but 193 countries said, we reaffirm our belief in Paris, we reaffirm our belief in striving for a world of 1.5 degrees, we reaffirm our belief in multilateralism. And that is a really, really important answer to the sense of doom and gloom that some people might feel. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, we'll have Elisabeth Zietner, State Secretary for Energy, Startups and Tourism in the Federal Ministry of Economy, Energy and Tourism in Austria.
Yeah, good afternoon. The transformation of our energy system is one of the key challenges of our time. But this transition is about much more than expanding renewable energy. It's a profound change across electricity, gas and heating sectors. And it requires us carefully to balance goals that do not always align easily. Coming back to the question of today, we have to watch affordability and competitiveness, environmental and climate protection, and security of supply. The real challenge to pursue all these three aims is to do it at the same time, in a world shaped by uncertainty, rapid technological change, and growing geopolitical tension. However, the global energy transition is not only a challenge, it is a major economic opportunity. And innovation is a powerful driver for competitiveness. Those who lead in green energy technologies will secure sustainable growth, high-quality jobs, and industrial leadership in decades ahead. Technological progress from renewable and advanced storage to digitalization and AI-based optimization helps to reduce dependencies and strengthen system stability. We must also accelerate innovation and make in areas such as clean hydrogen and make them market ready. It will be indispensable for sectors that are difficult to decarbonize and for industrial transformation more broadly. Research and innovation make an indispensable contribution. They help us understanding developments, assess technological trends, and identify concrete options for actions. But we also have to ensure access to finance that this innovation can grow and scale. Your expertise is essential for designing effective and sustainable policies. In this context, the IEA Energy Innovation Forum plays a vital role by fostering dialogue and cooperation between governments, industries, engineers, researchers. This forum turns ambition into action, and that is why we strongly support the IEA focus on innovation and actively participate in the technology collaboration programs. And in an interconnected world, collaboration is not optional, but it's essential. And therefore, I'm very pleased today to announce you that Austria will host the next IEA Energy Innovation Forum 2027 in Vienna. With a strong research landscape, a dynamic clean tech sector, and a long-standing commitment to multilateral cooperation, Austria provides excellent settings. Vienna is an international hub, and I'm happy to welcome you, all of you, in 2027 in Austria. So let's shape the new chapter of global energy transition together. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now you know where is one place you have to book a ticket for very quickly. Next we'll have Andre Corriado Lago, president of COP30, that I was there at, and it was a fabulous event, and we'll hear from how COP30 has evolved and the lessons that they've taken on, and how innovation plays a role in meeting many of the goals that COP30 has set for all the 193 countries.
Thank you very much, Akshat. It's a privilege to be speaking here among yourselves, especially with Sarah, with Ed, and now with Elizabeth. I think that we have witnessed today in those discussions is what the next 12 months demand, energy innovation at the intersection of urgency and opportunity. The IEA's new State of Energy Innovation report reminds us the energy transition is not a burden on innovation. On the contrary, it's the greatest engine of innovation of our generation. So at COP30 in Beijing, we made a clear choice. We transformed our climate regime after 3 decades of negotiation into an era of implementation. And implementation at its heart is about deploying what innovation has made possible. The COP30 Global Climate Action Agenda, some of you participated actively in it, mobilized over 480 initiatives across 190 countries, gathering thousands of businesses, investors, subnational governments, and civil society organizations. These were not declarations. They were delivery mechanisms with 120 plans to accelerate solutions worldwide. And a significant share of them were about exactly what this forum discussed today: grids, sustainable fuels, renewables, nuclear, and the supply chains that make scale possible. The spirit of the global mutirão, the Brazilian tradition of a collective action, proved that when governments, industry, and civil society work together without waiting for perfect consensus on every step, exponential change becomes possible. This is precisely the second institutional speed we need, and that I called two-tier multilateralism, not to replace the consensus that gives multilateralism its legitimacy, but to complement it, to act at the pace that global warming demands, which often the negotiation doesn't. So the title of this panel is about what to watch and where to act. Let me give you 3 concrete answers drawn directly from the COP30 action agenda set in motion in Belém. First, turn the COP30 grids package into deployment. In Belém, the Green Grids Initiative and a dozen partners, including the IEA, delivered a global plan to invest $1 trillion to triple collective renewable capacity and modernize power grids by 2030. The Utilities for Net Zero Alliance, UNESA, raised its annual investment targets to $148 billion, nearly 30% above last year's figure. The Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, announced $12 billion for the ASEAN power grid. The IDB launched the Power Transmission Acceleration Platform for Latin America and the Caribbean with Germany's support, for 16 countries targeting at least 80% renewable electricity by 2030. The grid financing principles developed under the COP30 action agenda, backed by the African Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, British International Investment, the East African Development Bank, Climate Bonds Initiative, Global Renewables Alliance, and the United Kingdom, among others, must now become active financing mechanisms and dedicated windows with multilateral and national institutions. As we know, there is no transition without transmission. The IEA report we discussed today makes the case clearly. Countries that invest early in clean energy gain lasting industrial advantages. Our task for the next 12 months is to accelerate the deployment in the sectors where the technology and the economics are already aligned. A second example from Belém is to deliver the Belém 4X pledge on sustainable fuels. In Belém, 23 countries officially endorsed the Belém 4X pledge on sustainable fuels, committing to at least quadruple the use of sustainable fuels by 2035 from 2024 levels. Governments, alongside non-state actors, aligned behind this ambition. The plans to accelerate solutions on future fuels under the Clean Energy Ministerial's Biofuture Platform, on aviation through ICAO, and Sustainable Aviation Buyers Alliance, on maritime decarbonization through the green shipping corridors, is, I think, an amazing progress. And we even have a landmark Brazil-Europe green corridor between the port of Açu and the port of Antwerp-Bruges, on the renewable and low-emission hydrogen through the H4D partnership 10 gigawatt lighthouse initiative. It must now move from strategy to signed contracts and physical infrastructure. Sustainable fuels are not produced at scale and competitive cost. They will remain a promise, as you were saying. Our task is to make them a product. The third thing I want to stress is the COP30 presidency roadmap to include energy innovation at its heart. At COP30, President Lula called for roadmaps so that the humanity, in a just and planned manner, can overcome its dependence on fossil fuels. We are now developing a science-based, data-driven COP30 presidency roadmap for transitioning away from fossil fuels in a just, orderly, and equitable manner. This is a contribution to translate the COP28 global consensus into actionable guidance. Finally, I want to insist on how at COP30 we strengthened implementation. The Global Implementation Accelerator, which was approved by all the countries present, and is going to be guided by the COP30 presidency and the incoming COP31 presidency. It is a prototype for adding a new institutional speed to climate multilateralism, enabling open coalitions and capable actors to mobilize resources and deploy solutions without reopening questions of direction already settled by consensus. We need consensus for negotiation. We don't need consensus for implementation. The innovators in this room, the startups, the researchers, the companies taking first-of-a-kind risks, are the blacksmiths of our age. You are not waiting for permission. You are building the infrastructure of a world that does not yet fully exist. And we have to thank the IEA for bringing us together and for creating this space where diplomacy and innovation speak the same language. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all those inputs. This is the last session where we are going to feed into the work that needs to be done over the next 12 months. Our ministers might have to leave at some point because they have a family photo that they have to be at. But I'm going to open the floor now for 60-second interventions for things that you might not have had a chance to say in earlier sessions because we've had many people wanting to talk but not enough time. So I definitely make sure that you get your views in. People outside the tables are also invited to speak, so I'll come back to you. But please try and keep your intervention to 60 seconds as possible so that we can get as many of them as possible. Maybe I'll start with the gentleman sitting behind who's raised their finger. Thanks.
Hello, Killian Totterdale is my name. I'm with Form Energy. We're manufacturing a 100-hour iron air battery. Yes, it's a really long duration. And indeed, we'll be announcing very soon. We've already signed 300 megawatts, which is 30 gigawatt hours of contracts. We're going to be announcing a singular deal, which will be that again, which is enabling the growth of an AI hyperscaler and the deployment really quickly. To do that, we've beaten unabated gas in that process to deliver that project. So that's why we've won. I think in that context, I think storage, energy security and resilient grids are really a defining characteristic. And I was really interested, maybe Minister Miliband and the representative from Australia as well, in just hearing how are you trying to think beyond thermal generation and the role that plays towards new energy technologies, demand response, as you said, Mr. Miliband, and indeed energy storage, to make sure that they can come at the enormous scales needed to deliver a resilient system.
While we have the privilege of having the minister here, would you like to respond?
I mean, it's definitely a big part of our thinking. And look, one of the things that we've done is we've taken a much more intentional approach to thinking about what does a clean power system look like. Not just thinking, well, let's just see what the market decides to do, but a much more intentional approach. And absolutely, battery storage. And I'm really interested in what you say, because I think, in the world of sort of under-indexing, I think longer duration batteries, it seems to me, is something that people are underestimating the huge potential. That's my sense from countries around the world. But it is something absolutely that we're trying to plan for.
Thank you. Can we have University of Southampton? I'm sorry we couldn't get you last time around, so please.
Thanks very much. Bakr Bahaj, University of Southampton. I've got a question to our minister. You don't often get to see a minister ask a question like this unless you are in Parliament, so I'm not in Parliament. And thanks very much for being here, being very, very clear about your challenge to industry with your CP30. Yeah. Fantastic opportunity for industry and so forth. The thing that I really wanted to ask you is that industry at the moment saying that we can't deliver this. and they are moaning around delivering it and so forth. And the two things I wanted to ask, one of them is technical, which is basically around the skill sets. What are we going to do about the skills needed to deliver all that amount of gigawatts that you have planned to do that? That's really important for us as universities to cover this. And the second point is a bit political. You have got quite a lot of opposition in the UK telling you ditch net zero. What are you going to tell them?
No. And we have to go now to the family photo. But just this is one very, very important point. Sorry, and I apologise for having to go to end on it. It goes back to my point about optimism. The people who want to stop this transition are trying to create more of a sense of a backlash globally and locally than really exists. David Cameron, my nemesis, once said, "Twitter is not Britain," and I tend to agree with him now. Certainly not now. It certainly isn't. X certainly isn't Britain. And look, the truth is that the British public, if you ask them, by 2 to 1 say renewables are more likely to lower bills than fossil fuels. So I'm not complacent about the need to bring people with us, but I am confident that we can win this argument on jobs, on energy security, on bills, and also because people, wherever they are in Britain and I think in the world, and Sarah spoke so well about this today at our session, if I may say so, they see the climate crisis as a real threat. They see it in, we're no longer talking about a future prospect, we're talking about a present day reality, and I think people get it more than some of the the right-wing media ecosystem would try and pretend.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have mission innovation next?
Hi, hi everyone. So first of all, thank you for a very stimulating day. It's been fantastic to be around so many colleagues and also to make so many new great friends. So Mission Innovation is a global platform. It was born out of COP21 to bring ministers and governments together to find common ground on innovation-related matters. Because at the time, in 2015, lots of people were doing things in silos. Intellectual property is a big question when it comes to innovation. And so Mission Innovation was born, and here we are 10 years later. And it's very exciting, as referenced this morning, that Mission Innovation is going to be moving closer to the IEA. We're going to be increasing our collaboration, which has existed very productively for a long time, which is really, really, really positive. I think that it allows us to work more closely with all of you. I'm looking forward to the Innovation Forum next year, where Mission Innovation will be here once again, talking about all the amazing work of our member governments. And I also think that the State of Energy report that came out this morning is exactly kind of what Mission Innovation exists to do. There are 3 actions of special relevance for this year, which are make strategic decisions, close funding gaps, and establish partnerships. And that's exactly what Mission Innovation does. And that's why our collaboration with the IEA is particularly important. And just to finish and reiterate what Mr. Miliband said, the importance of multilateralism and how far multilateralism has brought us so far, but how far we've yet to go. So just to say thank to you all, and looking forward to working more closely with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're doing a really good job of keeping to time and short points, so wonderfully done. Thank you. Can we have ETS TCP next?
Yes, I will be rather short. I'm Johanna Mossberg from the IETS TCP, that's Industrial Energy Related Technologies and Systems. I think that these days are really great to showcase, and also the report is really great to showcase the races to first and good examples and what can we learn from the progress that we make. I would also like to highlight that I think it's important that we also find those learnings from the projects that don't go the full marathon. Because if you look at all innovation literature and all innovation cycles, we know that for one success, it's at least 10 failures. And they are not failures, they are learnings, and it's a natural part of the innovation system. So I would stress and emphasize that we need to also find ways of capture those learnings when we don't go the full mile in order to go the full mile speedier. Thank you.
Thank you. IPCC?
Thank you. It's very pleasing as chairman of the Fusion Power Committee to see that fusion is being recognized as a potential or forthcoming source of clean energy. There was a breakout session on fusion. If you look at the number of startups that are coming in these last few years and the capital invested is absolutely amazing. So as a chair of an IEA committee, I cannot be extremely pleased. If I put my European hat, I happen to be French, I am very sad to see that, unfortunately, when you're a startup, that is, you are an innovator by definition, and you start to grow, you go to Series A, Series B investment, and you look for capital in Europe. Basically, you don't find it, and you're forced to go North America, the Far East. So I do not know what can be done by the political institution to support capital investment, but it's certainly something that, as a European, I would like to see what we could do better. Thank you.
Maybe we can go to an investor next, Set Ventures.
Yeah, thank you, Til Stenser with Set Ventures. We are a startup investor in the energy tech space across Europe. I'm not sure if I can answer the question the previous gentleman raised. It's definitely a fact of life that we do have a gap at the later stages in Europe. I think that's also probably going beyond just energy ministers. I guess in the sense of where to act, which is the slogan of this panel, I was struck by the comment by the Minister Miliband about him being offered a lot of golden bullet solutions, I would call them, that every one of them can solve their problems. Because indeed, obviously, that's exactly how we feel as investors. Every startup pitches us a solution that is for sure $1 billion company in a few years, so it's always a golden bullet. And the reality, of course, often turns out different, but not just because of the technology. And I think what we do have to recognize is that smart regulation is often a key part of this. And I think UK is a good example. For example, why is it that in the UK we have over a gigawatt of batteries deployed already, really helping to stabilize the grid, but in few other countries we have these examples? Or why are in Scandinavia already electric vehicles part of the flexibility system, and 75% of household customers are on dynamic tariffs? So I think governments, of course, have to support innovation and the next generation of technologies, but I think equally smart regulation that really can lead diffusion in these markets is equally important, and I would definitely put on the agenda.
Thank you. Can we have Verbund next?
Hello, Franz Zöchber from Verbund, the leading Austrian energy company. If you look at the next 12 months, one thing is clear for me, we must scale. Innovation only matters if it really scales. So I hope that in 12 months, the new normal will be the integration of new technologies in the core of the energy system, in the core of public procurement, and in the core of corporate procurement. Because then also financing of startups will be much more easier. To achieve that, we also must industrialize our corporations. Corporations not for pilots, corporations not for demonstration projects, corporations for scaling. I think that's quite important, that we have an alignment from government, industry, startups, and finance. As an example, we do that with the new Energy Launchpad, an execution platform of Verbund and other corporates, together with ETH Zurich, TU Munich, TU Vienna, where we really like to scale European technologies for the energy future. So for the next 12 months, it's not about testing, it's about execution. And I hope that we can make this year together a year of delivery at speed and scale.
Thank you. Can we have ETSAP next?
Thank you very much. Brian O'Gallagher, the chair of the ETSAP TCP. I wanted to make 2 points. The first is to echo what Minister Miliband mentioned about multilateralism, but also celebrating success. Because we often look ahead and look at the challenges, and it is useful to also reflect on how far we've come in certain areas. And that's timely for us in the ETSAP Technology Collaboration Programme, because this year we celebrate 50 years. And when you think back to 1976, and the first oil crisis had passed, the second oil crisis was yet to come, But the establishment by IEA of the technology collaboration programs was really fundamental, I think, to developing innovation and accelerating innovation across a number of areas. In our own TCP, we developed energy system modelling tools to support countries with their planning and with their energy and climate policies. And it's a significant milestone. The second point I wanted to make is a suggestion, and it builds on what Minister Muniz mentioned about her fifth point on social innovation. And it also reflects an earlier conversation we had on when we were looking at grids. And as Julia mentioned, the TRL9 is not the finish line. And so a suggestion in terms of how we look ahead, and I know this is acknowledged in the innovation report, that it's not just about technology. It's come up again today. It's really about systems. But reflecting on Minister Muniz's point, it's also about society. And so looking at system readiness levels, looking at societal readiness levels, and seeing how we can utilize technology readiness levels as a foundation, but also to build further insights into how we can accelerate the implementation that's so urgently required. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also raise the point that people who are not sitting on the table who want to speak, please raise your hands. I'll try to come to you as well. Next, can we have University of Cambridge?
Thanks. Again, also to echo Minister Miliband, I think it is important to distinguish the trend from the cycle. The problem is that the current cycle is undermining what has gotten us onto quite a successful trend. So if we think about not just multilateralism, which has been endorsed multiple times around this table, financial institutions and their support for net zero, the rise of tariffs, balkanization, the erosion of the world trade system, all of these have kind of successfully brought us to that trend that we can so heartily commend. The challenge is whether this current cycle, which has the echoes of populism, the echoes of even public pushback on concerns over the prices they're paying for their electricity, perhaps driven by a data center explosion. So all of these are really kind of worrying concerns that we have in this cycle. And I think since we're here at the IEA, I think it's important that IEA be monitoring and really tracking this, which is really a major threat to the wider trends of innovation that we've so successfully built up on for the last few decades.
Thank you for that. Next, can we have Nido from Japan?
Thank you. I'm Matsumoto from NEDO Japan, a Japanese funding agency to research and development of renewable energy and hydrogen. Yeah. Now, sometimes recently, we have information from the media that global renewable energy player is getting less incentive to promote the carbon neutral. So some Japanese players hesitate to invest more to the renewable energy. But today, I had many positive effort to promote the carbon neutral. So I'll go back to Japan and inform the true situation. Now Japan is proceed to the clean energy project, not only for clean circumstances, but also to the beneficial industry. And so NEDO is also promoting the commercialization of the such kind of project. I'll introduce one example. And now we are constructing the commercialization liquefied hydrogen receiving terminal. And that is included 15,000 cubic tons liquid hydrogen tank. And can you imagine the 15,000 cubic tons hydrogen? And so with the 15,000 cubic tons hydrogen, and Toyota Mirai will be able to rotate the Earth 1,800 times. So now Japan and global player also collaborate to realize the clean energy society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, can we get IIT? Yeah, I'm going through. I'm just trying to get new voices first, and yeah.
Thank you. Very, very interesting conversations the whole day. I have maybe two things, two suggestions actually, maybe for the IEA, at least one of them for the IEA, and the second one is maybe a little bit more general. I wanted to pick up on the point made by a colleague earlier, I think from TU Delft, about learning from these various projects that are going on. And I think maybe today we've heard a lot of the what is going on, but I think in many ways the how probably offers very, very interesting lessons for scaling up. And it's a kind of an activity that I think no one entity will do by itself, but and people may not even want to release some of the information, but IEA may be very well placed to do some of the analytical work in unpacking the how of many of these, not only the first of a kind, but other experiments. I know you've got a lot of free time at the IEA, so I just, but honestly, I think it would be a very valuable contribution. The second point I wanted to make was, it's kind of interesting listening to the conversations today, because there is a kind of an undercurrent, and also I can maybe mention explicitly a couple of times about this notion of China being almost having a monopoly in a lot of the key technologies in the energy transition, in the clean energy transition space. And yet, I think most countries seem to be framing their response in terms of national competitiveness. I mean, it kind of reminds me of a situation where in a political system where one political party is dominating and other political parties are all thinking individually about how to compete with them. I think that's maybe the wrong way to do it. And I think, this is not to say anything against China, I think a monopoly is just not good for anyone. And so maybe we need to be thinking about different kinds of partnerships between countries that have technological capabilities of different kinds and countries that have markets. It turns out that many of the countries that have technological capabilities have fairly saturated energy markets. There's some growth happening, but not as much in other countries where the energy markets are growing significantly. So I think there may be possibilities to think maybe a little bit outside the box about different kinds of partnerships that allow us to make sure that as we move forward, it's a slightly more diverse set of suppliers, technology suppliers, and innovation sources. And also kind of a much more kind of variegated markets appearing across the world. Just something to think about, but I just find this framing of national competitiveness in such a situation a kind of a limiting frame. Thank you.
That's a very useful point. I mean, Prime Minister Mark Carney, whose speech went viral in Davos, talked about how middle powers can come together, but that was just an idea. How do you actually come together is something that needs to be worked out, and maybe through different subject areas, it's possible to start to build some of these middle power coalitions. Elena.
Thank you. Well, first of all, congratulations to Timor's and Timor's team, because once again, I mean, this is a great dialogue and super interesting ideas are on the table. So very quickly, first of all, you say optimism. Let's keep it optimism, because since the year 2010, the number of innovations and climate tech companies have multiplied by 4. So this is a good news. we have been doing a job, and you have been doing a good job. Second thing is that now the focus is that how fast. And here it is a bit about what I would ask to our ministers and all the public administration is that we need systemic execution. And this is something that we are missing. One of the aspects of systemic execution is to have the proper finance and the proper funding. With your question, well, we have invested in a company in fusion. It's a company called Novatron. And then what is the problem? That many of the funds that at this moment are supported by the European Commission and so on, they have fusion in the exclusion list. So indeed, this is the problem of the incoherence of the systemic execution that I'm trying to say. And the other thing is that for many of these technologies, there is no instrument because it is big tickets with the risk of VC. And this is something that it is not there. So I think that we need to solve these topics in order to have this kind of systemic aspect. But capital is not only enough, and I think that this is something that it has been patterned in this conversation. We need off-takers, we need the skills, we need a proper regulation, we need permitting. So I think that just analyzing capital only without ecosystems, we would be going to a failure. And I can say also our example of Northvolt that you mentioned this morning, as one of the first investors of it, we have learned about it. And then the last point is what our friend here was saying about the idea that if climate tech is a global problem, nowadays we are seeing more and more these nationalist movements, which is made in Europe, it is, well, made in Spain and made in France and made and we are going smaller and smaller. So I don't know to what extent we are solving the problem. It is true that we have to be competitiveness, and it is good that this competitiveness needs to create an economic perspective in all the countries, but it is quite a dangerous thing, and probably is what we were saying before, we have to create a strategic foreign direct investments in the different countries, because otherwise we will not be able to move, for instance, industrialization. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good point. If everybody starts to build everything at home in the goal of trying to be competitive, well, there will be overcapacity and everybody will not be competitive. So it is definitely a challenge that needs to be solved. Noah.
Yes, thank you, Ashkat. Let me build. I want to build actually on the two previous speakers, interestingly enough. First of all, let me join others in indeed congratulating IEA and Timor with the great work. I have 3 points where IEA can act, where IEA, I think, can do a good job. Number one, I think it builds a little bit on the previous speakers once again. We heard that IEA is now going to be hosting Mission Innovation. Great. But what is IEA going to do with it? So how can we turn this into a big opportunity? And is it possible? Because I've heard so much today in earlier sessions about, there's so much stuff going on, but can we more merge efforts? Can we find ways to join funding, to accelerate, to bring efforts more together on important topics? So could that be, it's a high bar, but could it be a challenge for IEA next 12 months to formulate on a number of key technologies some real specific missions about advanced nuclear, about clean hydrogen, about large-scale battery storage. I mean, you name it, a couple of those, but not too many, but very specific to join efforts from the different countries, coalitions of the willing, and even perhaps pool funding to accelerate and to learn from each other. I think that would be, in my view, very helpful. Second point, I'm old school. I still believe in trade in a world where, it's fragmentation, trade barriers, etc. Could IEA, together with other international organizations, help define a space for trade in clean energy technologies where tariffs are very low or even zero and non-tariff barriers are lowered? could we have this effort going on the way in the next 12 months? I think it would send a very helpful signal in a world where trade fragmentations, etc., is now kind of top of the discussion. Going against the current, but I think we definitely need it, especially in this area of clean energy technologies. Third and last point, IEA is the only organization, and Fatih and others were saying that also this morning, you know, we have all the data, we see everything, we see all these countries. But again, can we turn this into more bold policy recommendations from IEA? You know, IEA knows where are the best policies to push innovation. So what can others learn from that? Can we be bolder in saying, look at how country X is rewarding first movers, whereas others, you know, make it very difficult for all the stuff that we talked about in earlier sessions. How to reward first movers, how to have smart public procurement policies that really help innovation. This kind of stuff. IEA can identify those perhaps and be much bolder in recommending to others, this is what others can do. Thank you.
That's great. I'll maybe take that opportunity to plug a story I published today about electric cars in Ethiopia, the only country to have banned the imports of fossil fuel cars, and which it did in 2024, so January 2024, when the penetration of EVs in the fleet was less than 1%. Today it's 6%, higher than the global average, within a gap of 2 years. So there are places around the world where very interesting things are happening, and it's all of our jobs to try and figure out, A, what are they getting right, what are they getting wrong? A question from there.
Yeah, thank you, Liebeck with HIF Global. I actually just wanted to answer to your question and build on the previous speakers, because I think we already have some sort of mini-lateralism / coalitions of the willing for clean energy technologies going on or created over the past couple of years. Thinking of, we heard COP30 President talk about the Belém Pledge to increase sustainable fuels. We had the Net Zero Nuclear Pledge, tripling renewables, doubling efficiency. I'm sure geothermal and others are in the works. And so I think using those coalitions of the willing to hash out what could policy collaboration look like, what could potentially pooled demo funding look like, depending on the stage of technologies, but also streamlining and harmonizing regulatory frameworks across borders. I think tapping back into the structures, the mini-lateral climate structures that we've already created, could be an efficient way to fill them with the recommendations that the previous 3 speakers have already made. So just wanted to answer your question. Thanks.
Thank you. McGill University.
Thank you, Sarah Jordan. I'm Associate Professor at McGill. So I just wanted to, I thought this session started off on a really great note. The initial comments on climate from Minister Munoz and the Honorable Miliband, I think, really set a good trajectory. I wanted to bring us back to one of the key points that, that Minister Munoz made about circularity. So before I get there, though, let's just remember something that astonished me at the end of last year, the beginning of beginning of this year, that the science breakthrough of the year was the unstoppable growth in renewables. Okay, that to me is absolutely astonishing. So different than 20 years ago, or 25 years ago, 20 years ago when I started in this field. So, but I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in this trajectory without thinking about the critical nature of materials, supply chains, and all the new dimensions that are coming into play. And what I would like to suggest is that we start to embed within decision making metrics and ways in which we can be forward thinking about questions of circularity. This means different types of modeling, like material flow analysis, life cycle assessment, going beyond just innovation thinking. Is there a way that we can couple these concepts about sustainability within our decision making and innovation? I'll be quick to finish, but I did just go to the Canadian Renewable Energy Association event, and I think it's easy to talk about circularity very broadly. But the name of the event was Coming of Age, and I have some students working in different aspects of renewables and how to implement circularity. What is essentially going on, if you think about your wind projects and other projects, they had original design lives, 25 years, for example, that might have been aligned with power purchase agreements, not at all aligned with thinking through how long we might be able to use specific resources. So now that we're seeing renewable sector coming of age, or at least the first fleet, and of course we've advanced a lot in the past 20 years or what have you, I think it's really important that we start to think about embedding these decision-making tools in innovation. Circularity, too, requires innovation. For example, we don't know how to recycle wind turbine blades. There's really big questions about repowering. What if we repower before PV panels are at their true end of life? PV panels can continue to generate electricity for decades if they're designed to do so, granted that there is degradation. So I want to end with just one statement that I think is really important. It's critical to decarbonize, but it is also critical to decarbonize sustainably. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get the question intervention from there?
Sure. Just to complement great things that have been said, for example, by Noé van Hulst and also the colleague from the Indian Institute of Technology. The notion of these learning curves is really important. We have fantastic results, PV, wind, batteries, etc. Those learning curves have been studied meticulously, and there's a lot of lessons in that. First of all, how we did come to that success. PV, great, a lot of IP patents produced in Europe, later on to China, scaled up. Wind offshore is a European success story, still a world-leading sector. There are bioenergy examples like Proelcol in Brazil, the bioenergy in Scandinavia, etc. One key lesson is also they generally took 20 to 30 years to do the full learning curve. I think that's a very important notion also for IEA in an analytical way of working, but also for mission innovation to take those lessons and look at those learning curves. Can they be condensed to 10 years, for example? That's the challenge, because the analysis also shows exactly where the bottlenecks have been, where were the delays, where were the hiccups. And I think that's extremely important for the coming 10 or 15 years or so to get these few dozen key projects fast to the market. IEA analysis itself showed if we do that, the cost of the energy transition will go down tremendously and we have sustainable business much quicker. So learning these lessons and translating it into mission innovation, alliances between countries, the Clean Energy Ministerial, I think that's a thing for the coming 12 months. Make those alliances, learn the lessons, and get to work.
Hello. My name is Mariusz Kownacki. I work for Ogre. Ogre delivers energy forecasting using artificial intelligence. And I'd like to share some observation, which I'm not sure if it came across, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But this observation is related to the social response. The observation is related to the social responsibility of the energy innovation. And I think I'll be a bit controversial if I say that I don't think energy innovation is democratic, because most of the innovation, majority of innovation is done in wealthy countries or big countries, which just due to the sheer size, they can spend resources and funding on energy innovation, and those countries are the major beneficiaries of the innovation of the energy innovation. And because they are they are also early adopters, and they improve their energy efficiency. So we have this widening gap of a development gap between the countries which are less developed and the more developed. The widening energy efficiency also gap, and equally the wealth the gap. So. I'm just wondering if there are mechanisms how we can counteract this process.
Thank you. University of Leeds.
Yes, thank you. So I think it's been really encouraging to be here today and listen to the various success stories and the way that innovation is really delivering results on the ground. But I think more broadly, if we look at the innovation system, it's very easy to find out how much money it costs us, either the public purse or private investors. It's much more difficult to find any information systematically about the benefits that are being delivered. So it's one of my kind of hobby horses, but given that we heard earlier that Timor's looking for things to do, I think it would be really good in the next 12 months for the IEA to think about how we can more systematically evaluate the way that we're spending the money that we're putting in, what we're getting for it, not only in terms of the narrow sort of technology, cost reduction and performance improvement, but also more broadly, can we quantify the economic benefits that we're getting from this innovation? Can we characterize the social benefits that we're getting as well? Because I think that would really help make the case to scale up what we're doing. Thank you.
There is a round number in the State of Energy Innovation report that says 100x is the return on investment on R&D, but I agree, can that be split out or be in different sectors and can be measured? That'd be useful. One from outside there, yeah.
My name is Birte Holst Jørgensen. I come from the Technical University of Denmark. I'm also chair of the Wind TCP. Looking just 12 months ahead is very short time. So the Wind TCP, or the implementing agreement, was part of the very first implementing agreement back in '77. And at that time, wind power was absolutely zero of the global electricity production. Today, it's 8%. Our Wind TCP has grown over these many, many years. We are 22 countries, 2 sponsors, including China Wind Energy Association, and we have 24 tasks covering the turbine, the atmosphere, the plant and the grid, co-design for the environment and social science. And in these tasks, there are varying partnerships. So my task now as chair is for the next 12 months, actually in a situation where we see decreasing research and development funding from some countries, to stay the course, we have to continue. There's so much work out there to be done. So we have to attract new members. We have 2 sponsors from Brazil, and I really hope that they one day will be a full member of the Wind TCP. We are also in contact with others. So there are varying partnerships in the task, and that's fully allowed.
Thank you. Intervention from there.
Thank you very much. I would like just to underline all that's been said about the inspiration of today. Here and there, and I think that's very good. There's also been some reflection on the Chinese experiences. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a specialist on what's happening in China, but I was I would like to point out just 1 or 2 things. First of all, I was also inspired by the observation of Minister Miliband when he said that just 10 or 12 years ago, we feared that we would move up to 4 degrees or even more, and maybe it's now brought down to 2.5. And I think all that technology which has made that possible has come from China. That's quite an extraordinary realization. I mean, much more was needed for that. I mean, we needed policies which made it possible to implement it. But that's quite a thought. So I always say the first attitude is gratitude. Without China, we would not have been where we are today. So that's very good. And then the next question is, how can we use the examples which are shown there now as an inspiration in the rest of the IEA family? And that's really what I come to, it's not a recommendation, but maybe also a question. And it's very difficult, and when you read the analyses, it's very difficult to say what is exactly now to pinpoint a reason why this strength is so profound there. Is it perhaps the consistency over 5 or 10 year periods where you know exactly where you have to be and set targets which are sometimes slightly lower than you actually achieve each of these 5 years, rather than setting a very, very high target, which is impossible to achieve and then deflates the enthusiasm in the markets? Is it that? Or is it, in fact, the skill to move from a technology to a scale which we really need to make difference? And how do you do that? Is it the consistency in supporting also manufacturing industry and not just the demand side? I'm really curious and really not viewing China as a threat, which in some cases it probably is, in some instances it is, but as an inspiration for the rest of the world, and for us as IEA family, where China is sort of also part of that family in some ways. To me, it would be very, very helpful if you find the blocks of inspiration out of those spectacular results, which can be used in other countries. And maybe the IEA can help us in distilling and identifying these factors, because we need the Chinese speed. That's what the world needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Not to bring up the same example again, but in Ethiopia, the reason they could move to electric cars was because they had access to cheap Chinese cars. And so that was one part of it, right? And the other part is they had hydropower, which is plentiful and cheap. We're going to take the last 3 interventions, and then Timur will be closing the session. So please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Vaitea, from now 50 years, so I have joined an American venture capital firm, and so just wanted to address a little bit on the financing question. There is capital in Europe, right, and there are great new technologies to invest in. Unfortunately, it's just a question of taking risks, which is why a lot of the great companies are going to the US. So just wanted to bring again a point that was raised in our fuels panel, because I thought actually it was quite a clever suggestion that perhaps is something to consider over the next 12 months, which was raising the point of green infrastructure projects, which are capital intensive up front and then disproportionately hurt by high interest rates. So 1% interest rate hits a hydrogen plant way harder than an oil refinery. So when we have carbon prices that are introduced, the energy costs will rise, inflation goes up, which means that central banks raise interest rates, cost of borrowing increases, and that makes a green investment more expensive, which is creating a paradox. We're trying to transition. And so an idea that came up was, why don't central banks create a carve-out with lower interest rates for green capital investment? So that would recognize the deflationary long-term and reducing the systemic climate risk. And if we wanted to look at it in practice, it could be a tiered lending facility where commercial banks access cheaper capital to on-lend to green infrastructure. So this could be a way to fix the systemic problem that we're facing and not address this as a project-by-project subsidy.
1.5.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to build on one of the comments that Andre made earlier, and that is about the speed of learning and how we can improve that. And give an example, the project that we are in the process of starting up at the moment is a 500,000 ton per year direct air capture project, largest of its kind in the world. We've split it into 2 phases, and phase 1 is the one we're starting now. That's 250,000 tons. And phase 2, which is almost mechanically complete now, and we'll be commissioning it pretty well right after we've started this one up. It has 30% fewer air contactors at the front end of this plant than in phase 1 for the exact same capacity. And that's a combination that gives us from a combination of engineering improvement, but also we're learning how to build as we go. So this goes back to Minister Miliband's point earlier about deployment being the key here, but deployment really is very important. And then the other thing is AI hasn't had much of a mention this afternoon, I've noticed, and so I'm going to break the duck on that and say that AI assisted learning is a real thing. It really is going to be important, and it will enable. I really strongly believe we will be able to realize those kind of accelerated learnings that you were alluding to earlier. Thank you.
Clean Tech Group.
I'll humbly try and offer you 2 or 3 things we're thinking about 26 that maybe
Some have been mentioned, some haven't. My first was about AI, funnily enough. Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. I mean, I think one side, I would expect to see some evidence of the what I would call the AI story hitting the limits of reality. And what I mean by that is all the power that is needed and the connectivity and the speed, it's just not going to happen the way all the announcements have happened. And what is actually happening is quietly a lot of these projects are getting shelved because we're reaching the point where some of the energy sources that they want to use are just not going to be available. This is actually quite good news for existing renewables, batteries, combinations. On the other side, it is a motor of innovation. You talk about learning systems, so I'm expecting to sort of see 2 or 3 breakthroughs around materials, which has come up in numerous things because there's going to be a materials revolution. So in the same way there's no transition without transmission, there's certainly no transition without a complete materials revolution. Weather modeling might be another one, which is probably going to be AI-driven, much more sophisticated, which is actually going to be quite a powerful uplift, again, on efficiency. I would love to see a reaffirmation of the trend. Hasn't been mentioned here, but I'm sure everybody realized and knew this, that I think last year was the first time we saw the rise in electricity demand actually all met by clean sources, and this is, if we see that again, I think we're starting to see this is for real, even if some don't wish. Talking of China, I guess let's not, I think we should all be watching next month when the 5-year plan is sort of reaffirmed. Is there going to be slightly more aggression than usual? You know, the Chinese are masters at under-promising and over-delivering, but this might be a point of signaling this electrostate future by actually pushing it harder. Your Ethiopia point is a good one. That was one of the things I wanted to say, was this is a very Northern Hemisphere centric conversation, and actually the Global South is where a lot of the deployment of renewables is happening at far greater speed, with far greater innovation, frankly, in the way they do it. It's not technological innovation, it's deployment innovation, and I think, honestly, we've got a ton to learn. And finally, if I may, 2 things I haven't heard mentioned that I think are important. Where's the water story going? This is the, underbedding of every bit of industry, whether it's food, whether it's energy, and so forth. And it's certainly a problem with data centers. The good news is it instigates innovation around liquid cooling, etc. But I'm concerned about that. And the other thing I'm concerned about is insurance, and I'm looking to see much more innovation coming out of the insurance industry. I've been disappointed by the finance industry so far, but the insurance industry actually showing more potential. Why? Because there's so many underinsured assets out there, and each year that we go through this heating crisis, it's only getting worse. And with that, welcome back.
Thank you. I thought that was the inputs I got, and all of these will feed into the ministerial in one form or the other, are great. Now I guess I will give the easiest job to Timur to sum up the day so that we can all go and get drinks.
Yeah, thank you, Akshat. Maybe let me start by picking up on what Bert said for the Netherlands. First, attitude is gratitude. No, I took that and took note of that excellent sentence. First, to the Netherlands, in fact, and Bert himself for co-hosting this forum and for all the support we got from the Dutch government in making this happen. Thanks to all of you for coming, making this a success. Also, thanks to all those, I noted that, who made excellent suggestions on what we should do as the IEA. My colleagues here in the back were, I'm sure, very flattered to hear that we have so much time to do additional things, because I'm sure they all agree. I thank those in particular who had their own ideas, what they should do, got some inspiration away from the day, in the sense that what you can do yourself, because this is not only an action agenda for the IEA, but for literally everyone here in the room. My job, in a way that I was given by my team in many ways when we were putting together the agenda, is to summarize today's event. I will not do that for this session because it was far too far too comprehensive, and indeed you were all there, so I don't need to tell you what you all listened to. But I think we have put together a couple of slides for the other sessions that we can probably put up on the, they're already there. Let's go to the first slide. This is not meant to be comprehensive, of course, but all the moderators of today, Julia is no longer here, but Vaitiya, Greg, and of course Akshat have helped putting together some of the key aspects of discussion today, and perhaps starting with the first session, just to encourage you all to have a look at our State of Energy Innovation report. It's the second edition. I think it was already great in the first one. It has really made another step in the second one, where we run a survey. We wanted to listen to what drives innovation actually in the wider ecosystem across different people. And I was quite struck. I guess if we had done this survey a couple of years ago, everyone would have said climate goals is the main preoccupation here, but today literally everyone was answering energy security. It drives it, competitiveness, affordability, etc. We have been monitoring public R&D spending for many years now. It's a database that I worked on as an intern in the IEA in 2003 already. It's a long-standing effort that the IEA does, and it is a bit depressing at times to hear from the analysts that are now doing this type of work that back in the early 1980s, IEA member countries were spending 0.1% of their GDP on public R&D, and now we're roughly at half that level among member countries, with a laudable exception here, European Union, Europe pulling ahead towards that number, 0.08% is the latest that we have. I was also very struck by how much is going on in battery innovation. It's not slowing down. You always feel like you've reached the end of the curve in a way, but that's not the case. If we are approaching roughly half of all patents in energy being in batteries, I think this is and storage technologies, this is a very important number. We have already mentioned some of these action areas for 2026 in this last session, so I will not repeat them. But I was also very inspired by the panel discussions this morning, the fireside chat with different startups, investors, and of course our ministers, where in many ways urgency drives innovation, but policy certainty is what drives the revenue, is the catchy phrase that we have here, and uncertainty in many ways undermines both. There is a certain misalignment in the risk appetite in the business, companies, investors, and the appetite that energy technology policy sometimes suggests, but this is an area we'll certainly keep monitoring and working on. If you go to the next slide, very briefly on the two of the breakout sessions on grids and then on fusion, the colleagues kindly put together here a challenge, and the actions that were identified for grids challenge is no longer just wires, is a living software-defined system. Actions that were identified were about creating incentives for AI, digital twins, and so on, and high-quality data to monitor, plan, and optimize. Second challenge is that was identified is around the enabling ecosystem that is not ready, where bottlenecks were identified, including regulatory frameworks, procurement roles, financing models, etc., etc., etc. The action that was thought through here is about making resilience the organizing principle, considering grids as a strategic asset with strong data governance skills and deeper international cooperation. In the context of fusion, there's a lot of discussion out there, and we have a fusion power coordination committee for a long time in the context of the IEA technology collaboration programs, and really big thanks here for David for all the excellent sharing he's doing there. As we are now in a place where fusion transitions from research to development, there are tensions here between private companies generating IP and protecting it and public laboratories requiring full transparency. The actions are not necessarily a direct response to the challenges, but there is a need for monitoring progress in a way that is accessible to policymakers, and obviously we are always happy to hear that the IEA has a role to play here, and developing regulations to provide investors with stability for projects that have such long timescales, which is inevitably the case for fusion. If you go to the next slide, Quickly on sustainable fuels, this is not only an innovation technology question. Many technologies exist here. How to de-risk investments to bridging the gap between pilots and commercial scale is the challenge that was identified. The actions that were thought through here were unlocking investments with policy that implements existing legislation, harmonizing standards for global trade, and first mover disadvantages must turn into first mover advantages. I hope you understand better than me what this is supposed to be saying, at least those were that were in the session. But there were a couple of concrete mechanisms that were identified. You hopefully all were in the first of a kind large-scale project session where the success requirements here are around strong partnerships across the value chain, including customers, choosing locations according to local strength, a robust business model, and courage, of course. And I have been very inspired myself by all those innovators here and what you are doing in all your individual marathons. Just to say, I also ran a marathon. No, I need it for the record here. And it was very painful already after the first 10 kilometers, to be honest. The challenges here are indeed that these projects are marathons, need funders and policymakers to stay the course at each new turn in order for the project to deliver its full value. The actions identified are about public support measures to target key risks and knowledge gaps for each technology, and of course cooperating on metrics and processes to move swiftly from first of a kind to global replication. Now, these were the main points from the sessions. I wanted to make 4 final points before closing this event. First, on mission innovation. Thanks for coming, Eleanor, today, and thanks for all the collaboration, as you highlighted, between the Mission Innovation Secretariat and the IEA Secretariat. We are extremely privileged to host Mission Innovation and look forward for making the most out of this opportunity for these 2 organizations, but I think much more importantly towards its members and the innovation ecosystem more broadly. Second point to make is about supply chain concentrations for clean energy technologies. It came up several times now, especially this afternoon, and so I cannot resist to do some shameless advertising, as I always do when I have an opportunity, to be honest. We were the first to identify the concentration along clean energy technology supply chains, in fact, in our Energy Technology Perspectives 2023 publication. So please watch the next edition coming out. It's very soon. I cannot announce the date yet, but it is literally around the corner. At least that's what I'm thinking. The focus here is on security implications for, in fact, economic security implications of this concentration and how to get competitive. It feels very daunting at times to compete with China in particular, that has scaled so enormously, but we've made an effort to try to at least put numbers on the table. The third point I wanted to make is a big thank you. Now that I've thanked everyone in the room, the Dutch government and everyone, I would like to thank the real heroes, to be very honest, which is the colleagues who've made this event a success. Simon Bennett standing over there. There's Anna Kalista. I think we have at least 3 or 4 versions of her because she's literally everywhere, but now I cannot see her. Okay, there she is, who's really been running everything so incredibly smoothly. Bérangère Melot, I don't know where she is right now. There she is, fantastic. Alberto Agnelli, I hope I see him too somewhere. There's Alberto. There's Per Anders Vidal, there's Araceli Fernandez Pales and her team who've put together this excellent analysis with a lot of data points, with a lot of technology insights, and many, many others, of course. There are many colleagues who've been helping to make that a success, and so please join me in giving them a big hand. So finally, we obviously look forward very much to the event in Austria next year. This was the 3rd edition of the IEA Energy Innovation Forum, and being at a point already now to be able to announce the next one feels quite like a privilege, but it also tells you that there is a real need for this type of engagement across the community with governments and all of you. In terms of logistics, what's happening now is there will be a networking reception starting at 6 p.m. The way is just right up the elevator. My colleagues will be available to guide you there, that you take the right turns, because sometimes it's a bit challenging here in the OCD building. But again, thank you all for coming, for joining us today. Thank you to Akshat Rathi in particular for getting us to this day so eloquently, and asking the right questions that were hopefully of interest and use for all of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Another one.
Indeed. So we can sign you up for next year already?
Sure.
Vienna is a great city, no? I mean, yes, we need to do that.
No, now I'm also convinced the editors. So.
Okay, great.